My name is Cassandra Martinez. I'm 26 years old, and I'm standing in my downtown apartment holding the phone that contains a video capable of destroying my sister's perfect wedding day. My entire family has spent months calling me jealous, bitter, and vindictive for refusing to attend Isabella's ceremony. They've painted me as the family villain, the envious sister who couldn't handle her siblings' happiness. Every relative, every family friend, even our grandmother has labeled me as petty and cruel. But what I was about to send them would prove I wasn't the villain in this story. I was the victim who finally found her voice, and the truth I possessed would shatter their perfect illusion forever. Before we dive into this story that changed everything, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below, and if this story resonates with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life family drama stories. Trust me, what you're about to hear will make you question everything you think you know about family loyalty. Let's get started. Growing up in our affluent Connecticut family, the roles were crystal clear from day one. Isabella was the golden child, and I was perpetually cast as her shadow. My parents, Robert and Margaret Martinez, never bothered hiding their favoritism. Isabella possessed that effortless charm that made adults fawn over her, while I struggled to earn even basic acknowledgement for my accomplishments. When Isabella brought home V's, my parents celebrated with dinner at expensive restaurants. When I achieved straight A's, they barely glanced up from their newspapers. The disparity became glaringly obvious during major life events. My high school graduation fell on the same weekend as Isabella's college sorority social event. Without hesitation, my parents flew to her university while I sat alone in the auditorium, watching other families celebrate their children's achievements. Isabella posted photos of herself surrounded by our parents, captioned with jokes about missing her little sister's thing for something actually important. The humiliation burned deeper when relatives commented with laughing emojis, treating my milestone as an afterthought. My 21st birthday party exemplified their treatment perfectly. I had planned a small gathering, inviting close friends and family members to celebrate at a nice restaurant. 2 days before the event, Isabella announced she wanted to host a last-minute charity fundraiser for her sorority. My parents immediately redirected the entire family's attention to her event, canceling their attendance at my birthday dinner. They even suggested I postpone my celebration to help Isabella with her fundraiser setup. When I protested, Mother accused me of being selfish and unsupportive of Isabella's important charitable work. The college fund incident remains the most devastating example of their favoritism. For years, my parents had promised equal educational support for both daughters. I worked tirelessly to maintain perfect grades, participated in multiple extracurricular activities, and even took weekend jobs to demonstrate my responsibility. When acceptance letters arrived, I had been accepted to several prestigious universities with partial scholarships. However, when the time came to discuss financial arrangements, my parents revealed they had already spent my entire college fund on Isabella's education, including her expensive sorority fees, study abroad programs, and graduate school preparation courses. Isabella's manipulative nature manifested early, but remained hidden from our parents. She possessed an uncanny ability to orchestrate situations where she emerged victorious, while I appeared foolish or incompetent. During my junior year of high school, I had worked months preparing for a crucial scholarship interview that could have changed my educational trajectory completely. The night before the interview, Isabella offered to help me practice and provided what she claimed was the updated interview location. I arrived at the wrong building, frantically searching for the correct office while my interview time passed. The scholarship committee, unimpressed by my absence, awarded the opportunity to another candidate. When I confronted Isabella, she feigned innocence, suggesting I had misunderstood the information. Our parents believed her version entirely, expressing disappointment in my forgetfulness during such an important moment. The extended family dynamics reinforced these patterns consistently. Grandmother Martinez showered Isabella with expensive gifts and constant praise, while treating me as an afterthought during family gatherings. Aunts and uncles hung on Isabella's every word, laughing at her stories and soliciting her opinions on various topics. Meanwhile, my contributions to conversations went largely unnoticed, and my achievements received polite acknowledgement at best. Family photos from holidays and special events tell the story clearly. Isabella positioned prominently in the center, radiating confidence, while I hover awkwardly at the edges, looking increasingly uncomfortable as years progressed. Father's financial control served as another weapon in maintaining family hierarchy. He readily approved Isabella's requests for expensive clothes, travel opportunities, and social activities, justifying these expenditures as investments in her future success. When I requested modest allowances for school supplies or occasional social activities, he scrutinized every penny, questioning whether such expenses were truly necessary. This disparity became more pronounced during our college years, when Isabella received generous monthly allowances while I worked multiple part-time jobs to cover basic living expenses. Mother's emotional manipulation proved equally damaging, though more subtle in execution. She frequently confided in Isabella, treating her as a peer and confidant, while maintaining distant, authoritative relationships with me. When conflicts arose between Isabella and me, Mother automatically assumed Isabella's innocence and my guilt, rarely bothering to investigate the actual circumstances. These patterns taught me early that my voice carried no weight in family disputes and that Isabella's version of events would always prevail regardless of evidence to the contrary. The cumulative effect of years of this treatment created deep resentment that I struggled to suppress. Every family gathering became an exercise in endurance, watching Isabella bask in adoration while I remained invisible. I began documenting these incidents in a private journal, not from malice, but from a desperate need to validate my own experiences when the entire family seemed determined to gaslight me into believing my perceptions were distorted. This journal would later become crucial evidence, though I never imagined it would be weaponized against me so cruelly. The engagement announcement arrived like a precision-guided missile, designed to inflict maximum emotional damage. Isabella had orchestrated an elaborate family gathering under the pretense of celebrating Father's birthday, ensuring maximum audience for her moment of triumph. She waited until we had all settled into the formal dining room, surrounded by extended family members and close family friends, before making her devastating revelation. David Chin had been my quiet obsession for nearly 3 years. We had worked together at Morrison Marketing Group, where his intelligence, humor, and genuine kindness had gradually worn down my carefully constructed emotional walls. Our interactions remained professionally appropriate, but I had confided my growing feelings to Isabella during what I believed were sisterly conversations. She had seemed supportive, even encouraging, offering advice about how to approach him and suggesting opportunities for us to spend time together outside work. What I didn't know was that Isabella had been systematically using my confidences to pursue David herself. While I agonized over whether to reveal my feelings, she had already begun her own campaign of seduction, leveraging every detail I had shared about his interests, preferences, and personality. She positioned herself as the perfect woman for him, armed with inside knowledge of his deepest desires and aspirations that I had innocently provided during our supposed heart-to-heart conversations. The announcement itself was masterfully cruel in its execution. Isabella rose from her seat, radiant in a designer dress that probably cost more than my monthly salary, and tapped her champagne glass with calculated theatrical timing. She began by thanking everyone for celebrating with the family, then launched into a speech about finding true love in unexpected places. My stomach began churning as premonition crept over me, but nothing could have prepared me for the devastating revelation that followed. David and I have been secretly dating for 2 years, she announced, her voice carrying across the silent room. We wanted to be absolutely certain about our future together before involving family, and now we're thrilled to announce our engagement. The room erupted in congratulations and excitement, but Isabella wasn't finished with her performance. She locked eyes with me across the table, her expression shifting to mock concern as she continued her monologue. I know some people might be surprised by this news, especially Cassie, since she's mentioned having feelings for David. The room fell uncomfortably silent as every face turned toward me, expressions ranging from curiosity to pity. But I think this experience will teach her an important lesson about being realistic regarding her romantic expectations. David and I are simply better suited for each other in terms of education, social connections, and life goals. The humiliation was devastating and deliberate. Isabella had transformed what should have been a private disappointment into a public spectacle, using my deepest vulnerabilities as entertainment for our entire extended family. The worst part was watching David, who had appeared beside her as if by magic, nodding in agreement with her assessment of our respective worthiness. His presence confirmed that this wasn't just Isabella's cruelty. He had been a willing participant in this elaborate deception. Our parents' reaction provided the final twist of the knife. Instead of recognizing the obvious cruelty of the situation, they burst into delighted laughter, treating Isabella's revelation as charming sisterly teasing rather than calculated emotional abuse. Father raised his glass in a toast, praising Isabella for helping Cassie understand the importance of setting appropriate expectations in life. Mother chimed in with observations about how this experience would help me develop more realistic self-awareness. The extended family joined the chorus of laughter and approval, treating my obvious distress as amusing rather than concerning. Cousins exchanged knowing glances and suppressed giggles, while aunts and uncles offered condescending comments about young love and learning to handle disappointment gracefully. Uncle Thomas, who had always seemed like a potential ally, patted my shoulder patronizingly while suggesting this experience would ultimately benefit my character development. David's complicity in the entire scheme became increasingly apparent as the evening progressed. During a moment when Isabella stepped away to accept congratulations, he approached me with what he probably thought was kindness, but felt like additional torture. He explained that he had known about my feelings for months, because Isabella had shared our conversations with him regularly. They had found my attempts at subtle flirtation endearing but ultimately misguided, given the obvious differences in our social standings and future prospects. Isabella and I connect on levels you couldn't understand, he said with devastating casualness. We share the same educational background, social circles, and family expectations. Her father's business connections will be invaluable for my career advancement, and she understands the importance of maintaining appropriate social appearances. I hope you can understand why this relationship makes more sense for everyone involved. The revelation that Isabella had been systematically betraying my confidences for years hit harder than losing David himself. Every conversation I had thought was bonding us as sisters had actually been intelligence gathering for her romantic campaign. She had encouraged me to share my deepest feelings and insecurities, not from sisterly love, but to better position herself as David's ideal partner. Cousin Jennifer approached me later in the evening with what initially seemed like sympathy, but quickly revealed itself as another layer of betrayal. She confessed that she had been helping Isabella track my interactions with David, reporting back on my behavior and conversations during family gatherings where he was present. The entire extended family network had been complicit in setting up this humiliation, treating my romantic feelings as a source of entertainment rather than respecting my emotional vulnerability. The evening concluded with Isabella's announcement that she wanted me to serve as her maid of honor, framing this request as an opportunity for me to demonstrate my growth and maturity. The family applauded this gesture as evidence of Isabella's generous spirit and my chance at redemption. I found myself trapped in a nightmare scenario where refusing would be seen as confirmation of my jealousy and immaturity, while accepting would require participating in my own continued humiliation. As family members departed that night, each offered congratulations to Isabella while providing me with patronizing advice about handling disappointment gracefully and learning from this experience. The message was clear. My pain was insignificant compared to Isabella's happiness, and my role was to smile, support her choices, and grateful for whatever scraps of attention the family might occasionally throw my way. Accepting the maid of honor role proved to be the biggest mistake of my life, though I felt trapped by family pressure and social expectations. Isabella wasted no time transforming what should have been an honor into a systematic campaign of psychological torture, using every aspect of wedding planning as an opportunity to humiliate and undermine me further. The bridesmaid dress incident set the tone for everything that followed. Isabella insisted on ordering all dresses together during a group shopping trip, claiming this would ensure perfect coordination and timing. When we arrived at the bridal boutique, she had already selected styles and colors for everyone except me. My dress, she announced, would be special since I was the maid of honor. She proceeded to order a dress 3 sizes too large, claiming the measurements I provided must be incorrect since I always struggled with self-awareness about my body. When I protested that the measurements were accurate, Isabella turned to the other bridesmaids with theatrical concern, suggesting that my stress about the engagement announcement had affected my judgment about everything, including basic self-perception. The boutique staff, eager to please their high-spending customer, agreed to order the incorrect size despite my objections. Isabella assured everyone that alterations could fix any sizing issues, but when the dress arrived, the alterations required were so extensive that the entire garment's proportions were ruined. The bachelorette party scheduling revealed the calculated nature of Isabella's cruelty. She knew I had been preparing for months to present a crucial marketing campaign proposal to our firm's biggest client. This presentation represented my best opportunity for career advancement and potential partnership consideration. Isabella waited until 3 days before my presentation to announce the bachelorette party dates, claiming the weekend was the only time when all her sorority sisters could attend. When I explained the conflict and asked about rescheduling, Isabella launched into a performance about how disappointed she was that I would prioritize work over family obligations during her once-in-a-lifetime celebration. She suggested that my inability to balance professional and personal commitments revealed fundamental character flaws that explained why relationships and social situations consistently challenged me. The other bridesmaids rallied around her, expressing shock that I would even consider missing such an important event. Mother reinforced Isabella's position by calling me personally to express her disappointment in my priorities. She reminded me that family obligations should always supersede professional considerations, especially during such a meaningful time in Isabella's life. When I attempted to explain the career significance of my presentation, she dismissed my concerns as evidence that I had become too focused on work as a way of avoiding the personal growth that witnessing Isabella's happiness might inspire. The wedding vendor sabotage campaign represented psychological warfare at its most sophisticated level. Isabella systematically contacted every florist, caterer, photographer, and coordinator involved in wedding planning to warn them about my alleged mental instability. She crafted a narrative portraying me as jealous, unpredictable, and potentially disruptive, suggesting that any input I might offer should be ignored for everyone's safety and peace of mind. During our first meeting with the wedding photographer, I discovered the extent of her manipulation when he pulled Isabella aside to ask whether I should be included in planning sessions. He mentioned receiving concerning information about my emotional stability and wondered whether my presence might create uncomfortable situations during such an important celebration. Isabella feigned surprise and concern, suggesting that while she hoped I could participate normally, she understood if professionals preferred to limit my involvement for everyone's comfort. The flower consultation revealed another layer of Isabella's systematic campaign. When I offered suggestions about centerpieces and bouquet arrangements, the florist politely but firmly directed all questions to Isabella, explaining that they had been informed about family dynamics that made my participation complicated. Isabella expressed sadness about the situation, claiming she had hoped I could contribute meaningfully but understood that my recent emotional struggles made normal participation challenging. Father's business connections provided Isabella with additional ammunition for her psychological assault. She convinced him that my behavior during wedding planning reflected poorly on the family's reputation, potentially affecting his professional relationships and social standing. He began pressuring me to modify my involvement, suggesting that stepping back from prominent roles might be better for everyone involved, including myself. The diary invasion represented perhaps the cruelest violation of all. Isabella had somehow gained access to my private journal, where I had documented years of family mistreatment and recorded my genuine feelings about various situations and relationships. She began sharing selected entries with David's family, presenting them as evidence of my unstable mental state and obsessive tendencies regarding their relationship. David's mother approached me at a family gathering with what seemed like genuine concern, but quickly revealed itself as another humiliation. She mentioned reading some of my writing that Isabella had shared, expressing worry about my apparent fixation on David and suggesting that professional counseling might help me develop healthier coping mechanisms. The realization that my most private thoughts had become entertainment for David's family added a new dimension of violation to an already unbearable situation. Isabella's manipulation of wedding responsibilities extended to every possible detail. She assigned me tasks that were either impossible to complete successfully or designed to showcase my inadequacies. When she asked me to coordinate with out-of-town relatives about accommodation arrangements, she provided incorrect contact information and outdated preferences, ensuring that my efforts would result in confusion and complaints about poor planning. The bridal shower planning became another opportunity for systematic humiliation. Isabella insisted that I organize the entire event while maintaining strict control over every decision. She rejected my suggestions as inappropriate or insufficient, then criticized the execution of her own ideas as evidence of my poor planning abilities. When guests complimented aspects of the shower, she graciously accepted credit while subtly directing criticism toward me for elements that fell short of perfection. Aunt Patricia emerged as another ally in Isabella's campaign, spreading rumors about my mental health and emotional stability throughout our extended family network. She shared carefully edited versions of family interactions, portraying me as increasingly unstable and potentially dangerous to Isabella's happiness. These rumors reached David's family and social circle, further isolating me and reinforcing narratives about my supposed jealousy and inappropriate behavior. The cumulative effect of months of this treatment began affecting every aspect of my life. My work performance suffered as stress and emotional exhaustion took their toll. Sleep became elusive as I replayed daily humiliations and tried to strategize ways to survive the ongoing psychological assault. Friends began distancing themselves as Isabella's influence spread beyond family circles, reaching into my social and professional networks. The final weeks of wedding planning intensified Isabella's campaign as she sensed my growing desperation and emotional fragility. She began recording our conversations, editing them to remove context and present me as increasingly irrational and hostile toward her happiness. These recordings became evidence she shared with family members to justify her concerns about my behavior and mental state during the upcoming celebration. 2 months before the wedding, pure chance handed me the weapon I never knew I needed. Isabella had asked me to retrieve some documents from father's home office for wedding planning purposes, claiming she needed insurance information for venue coordination. While searching through his meticulously organized filing cabinet, I accidentally knocked over a stack of financial documents that scattered across the floor. As I gathered the papers, certain figures and account numbers caught my attention, revealing discrepancies that didn't make sense. Isabella worked as a financial advisor at Martinez Holdings, father's commercial real estate development company. Her position had been presented as proof of her business acumen and natural leadership abilities, though I had always suspected nepotism played a significant role in her advancement. The documents scattered across the office floor told a dramatically different story about her professional competence and moral character. Bank statements from the company's operating accounts showed regular withdrawals that didn't correspond to any authorized business expenses or payroll disbursements. The amounts were substantial, but not large enough to trigger immediate attention from automated monitoring systems. However, when I cross-referenced these withdrawals with Isabella's personal banking information that she had carelessly left in the same filing system, the pattern became unmistakably clear. Over the past 3 years, Isabella had systematically embezzled over $200,000 from Martinez Holdings. The theft was sophisticated in its execution, demonstrating careful planning and intimate knowledge of the company's financial oversight procedures. She had been creating false vendor invoices, manipulating expense reports, and redirecting client payments into accounts she controlled exclusively. The false vendor scheme was particularly elaborate. Isabella had established relationships with fictional companies that existed only on paper, complete with professional-looking invoices and legitimate-seeming business addresses that were actually private mailbox services. These fake vendors billed Martinez Holdings for consulting services, maintenance contracts, and professional development programs that never actually occurred. The invoices were always below the threshold that would require additional approval signatures, allowing Isabella to authorize payments from her position without triggering review processes. Client payment redirection represented another layer of her embezzlement strategy. Isabella had convinced several smaller clients to send payments to what she claimed were new processing accounts for improved efficiency. These accounts were actually controlled by shell companies she had established, allowing her to collect legitimate client payments while creating paperwork that made the funds appear to be late payments or account receivable issues. The expense report manipulation involved submitting receipts for legitimate business expenses while simultaneously requesting reimbursement through alternative channels, effectively getting paid twice for the same expenditures. She had been doing this with conference attendance, client entertainment, and professional development costs, accumulating thousands of dollars in fraudulent reimbursements over extended periods. What made the discovery even more shocking was finding evidence that Isabella had been preparing to frame me as an accomplice in her crimes. Several documents bore forged versions of my signature, including authorization forms for suspicious transactions and vendor agreements for companies I had never heard of. If the embezzlement had ever been discovered, these documents would have implicated me as either a co-conspirator or the primary perpetrator, given that I had no actual access to company accounts or authorization privileges. The forged documents were sophisticated enough to withstand casual inspection, but showed clear evidence of manipulation under closer examination. Isabella had been practicing my signature for months, as evidenced by pages of attempts hidden in her personal files. She had also created email accounts using variations of my name to establish paper trails that would suggest my involvement in establishing the fictional vendor relationships. Further investigation revealed how Isabella had been using the stolen funds to finance her elaborate lifestyle and impress David's wealthy family. The money had paid for her designer wardrobe, expensive travel, luxury car payments, and the very engagement ring that David believed demonstrated his financial stability and commitment. Her entire persona as a successful professional woman was built on stolen money and fraudulent financial foundations. Hotel receipts and credit card statements provided evidence of an even more devastating betrayal. Isabella had been conducting an ongoing affair with Marcus Thompson, David's best friend and designated best man, throughout their entire engagement period. The relationship wasn't casual or accidental, it was systematic and deliberate, involving regular hotel meetings, expensive dinners, and romantic getaways that occurred while David traveled for business. The affair evidence was comprehensive and undeniable. Isabella had been careless about covering her tracks, apparently confident that her golden child status would protect her from serious scrutiny. Text message printouts revealed explicitly sexual conversations between Isabella and Marcus, including discussions about how much they enjoyed deceiving David and plans for continuing their relationship after the wedding. Photographs from various hotel encounters left no doubt about the nature of their relationship. Isabella and Marcus had been documenting their affairs with selfies and intimate pictures, apparently finding excitement in the risk of discovery. The dates on these images corresponded directly with occasions when Isabella had claimed to be attending work events or spending time with female friends. Credit card records showed that Isabella had been using stolen company funds to finance her affair with Marcus, paying for hotel rooms, expensive dinners, and gifts that she presented as evidence of her sophisticated taste and financial success. The irony was staggering. She was using embezzled money to cheat on the fiancé she had stolen from me, all while presenting herself as the perfect daughter and future wife. The most damning evidence came from recorded conversations between Isabella and Marcus discussing their plans for the future. Isabella had been secretly recording some of their encounters, apparently for her own entertainment or as potential blackmail material. In these recordings, she expressed contempt for David's intelligence and described him as a useful stepping stone to social and financial advancement rather than someone she actually loved. Marcus revealed equally disturbing attitudes, expressing amusement at David's devotion and discussing strategies for continuing their affair after Isabella's marriage. They had planned elaborate deception schemes, including fake business trips and fictional social obligations that would provide cover for ongoing romantic encounters. The cruelty of their discussions was breathtaking in its casual disregard for David's feelings and trust. As I absorbed the magnitude of Isabella's crimes and betrayals, I realized I possessed the power to destroy everything she had built through deception and theft. The evidence was comprehensive, well-documented, and legally devastating. However, I also understood that exposing these secrets would create massive collateral damage, affecting not just Isabella but Father's business, our family's reputation, and David's emotional well-being. Isabella discovered me in Father's office while I was still processing the implications of what I had uncovered. Her initial anger at finding me with financial documents quickly transformed into calculated threat-making as she realized the potential consequences of my discovery. She didn't deny the evidence or attempt to explain her actions. Instead, she immediately began threatening to destroy me completely if I revealed anything I had learned. "You think you found something useful, but you have no idea how deep this goes," she said with chilling calmness. "If you try to use any of this against me, I'll make sure everyone knows about your mental breakdown, your obsession with David, and your desperate attempts to sabotage my happiness. I have recordings, documents, and witnesses that will prove you're an unstable, jealous sister who finally snapped and started making false accusations." Her threats revealed the extent of preparation she had been making for potential exposure. Isabella had been systematically building a defense strategy that would portray me as the real criminal, using my documented emotional struggles and family conflicts as evidence of my unreliability and motivations for making false accusations. She had been preparing for this confrontation long before I stumbled onto her secrets, demonstrating the calculating nature of her criminal enterprise. The confrontation ended with Isabella's ultimate threat: if I revealed her secrets, she would ensure that I lost everything I had left, including my job, my remaining family relationships, and my freedom through false criminal accusations supported by forged evidence. She had been planning for discovery and had prepared comprehensive strategies for destroying anyone who threatened to expose her carefully constructed lies. 3 weeks before the wedding, the fragile peace that had existed since my discovery of Isabella's secrets shattered completely during what became the most devastating family dinner of my life. Isabella had been planning this confrontation meticulously, gathering allies and preparing evidence for what she intended to be my final humiliation and expulsion from the family structure entirely. The evening began normally enough, with extended family gathering at my parents' house for what Mother had described as a pre-wedding celebration. Uncle Thomas and Aunt Linda had driven down from Boston, Grandmother Martinez had flown in from Florida, and several cousins had arranged their schedules to attend what they believed would be a joyous family occasion. The atmosphere was festive and warm, with everyone eager to discuss wedding plans and share excitement about Isabella's upcoming marriage. Isabella waited until we had finished dinner and gathered in the living room for dessert before launching her carefully orchestrated attack. She stood up with the same theatrical timing she had used for her engagement announcement, but this time her expression conveyed hurt and concern rather than joy and celebration. The room fell silent as she began speaking in a voice trembling with what appeared to be genuine emotional distress. "I need to share something with all of you that's been weighing heavily on my heart," she began, her eyes glistening with what looked like tears. "I've been hoping that Cassie would work through her feelings about my engagement on her own, but her behavior has become increasingly concerning and potentially dangerous to my relationship with David and our upcoming wedding celebration. The accusation that followed was masterfully constructed, combining elements of truth with devastating fabrications designed to portray me as mentally unstable and obsessively jealous. Isabella claimed that I had been making inappropriate advances toward David, showing up at his workplace uninvited, and sending him disturbing messages declaring my continued romantic feelings despite his engagement. She produced printed screenshots of text messages that appeared to be from my phone number, containing desperate and increasingly unhinged declarations of love for David and threats to disrupt the wedding if he proceeded with marrying Isabella. The messages were sophisticated fakes, created using spoofing technology that made them appear legitimate while containing language and emotional expressions that seemed consistent with someone experiencing a psychological breakdown. I've tried to be understanding about Cassie's feelings, Isabella continued, her voice breaking with apparent emotion. I know losing David was difficult for her, and I hoped that supporting her through this process would help her heal and move forward. But these messages show that she's not processing her feelings in healthy ways, and I'm genuinely concerned about what she might do during our wedding celebration. The family's reaction was immediate and devastating. Faces that had shown warm affection throughout dinner transformed into expressions of concern, disappointment, and growing alarm. Grandmother Martina shook her head sadly, murmuring about mental illness running in families and the importance of getting proper help before situations escalated beyond control. Uncle Thomas and Aunt Linda exchanged worried glances, clearly disturbed by what they perceived as evidence of my deteriorating emotional state. Father's response proved the most crushing of all. His face darkened with anger and embarrassment as he processed what he believed was evidence of his daughter's inappropriate and potentially criminal behavior. "Cassandra, what is wrong with you?" he demanded, his voice carrying the weight of years of accumulated disappointment. "How could you embarrass our family this way? How could you harass David when he's trying to build a life with your sister?" Mother's reaction added another layer of humiliation and rejection. She began crying, expressing heartbreak over what she saw as my complete loss of moral compass and emotional stability. "I don't understand where we went wrong with you," she sobbed, accepting comfort from Isabella while looking at me with obvious revulsion and disappointment. "Isabella has been nothing but kind and supportive, and this is how you repay her love and generosity?" The extended family joined the chorus of condemnation with enthusiasm that revealed how eager they had been to find reasons to reject me completely. Cousins who had maintained polite relationships with me throughout childhood now expressed shock and disgust at what they perceived as my descent into stalking and harassment. Aunts and uncles shared stories of concerning behavior they claimed to have noticed during recent family gatherings, retroactively interpreting normal interactions as evidence of my growing instability. Isabella's performance reached its crescendo when she revealed what she claimed was the most disturbing evidence of all: recordings of conversations where I allegedly admitted to planning wedding day sabotage. These recordings were sophisticated audio manipulations, combining clips of my actual voice with fabricated content that made it appear I had confessed to planning disruptions and possibly violent interventions during the ceremony. The fake recordings included discussions of obtaining wedding venue layouts, researching security procedures, and expressing fantasies about publicly humiliating Isabella and David during their vows. The content was disturbing enough to genuinely alarm family members, while remaining believable because the voice was authentically mine, even though the words and sentiments were completely fabricated. Uncle Thomas, who had previously maintained friendly relationships with me, immediately declared that my presence at the wedding would be inappropriate and potentially dangerous for everyone involved. He suggested that the family should consider involving law enforcement if I continued to demonstrate threatening behavior toward Isabella and David. His transformation from potential ally to active opponent demonstrated the effectiveness of Isabella's manipulation campaign. Aunt Patricia emerged as Isabella's most vocal supporter, sharing additional evidence that she claimed demonstrated my escalating instability and potential for violence. She had been documenting my behavior during family gatherings for months, collecting out-of-context quotes and photographs that she presented as proof of my deteriorating mental state and growing resentment toward Isabella's happiness. The family ultimatum came from father, delivered with the authority of someone making a final business decision rather than addressing his daughter's emotional crisis. I would attend the wedding as a supportive and celebratory family member, publicly apologizing for my inappropriate behavior and demonstrating genuine happiness for Isabella's marriage. Or I would be permanently expelled from the family with complete financial and emotional cutoff from all family resources and relationships. The terms of the ultimatum were comprehensive and devastating. If I chose not to comply, father would immediately freeze my trust fund, cancel all financial support including health insurance and car payments, and ensure that I was excluded from all future family gatherings and celebrations. Mother added emotional components, threatening to tell extended family and family friends that I was no longer welcome in their home due to mental health issues that made me dangerous to Isabella's well-being. The financial threats escalated beyond simple withdrawal of support. Father revealed that my apartment lease was in his name as a cosigner, meaning he could effectively make me homeless by refusing to renew or support ongoing rental payments. My credit cards were connected to family accounts, giving him the power to destroy my credit rating and financial stability with simple administrative actions. Extended family members reinforced the ultimatum with their own threats of social and emotional exile. Grandmother Martinez announced that I would be removed from her will and excluded from all future holiday celebrations if I continued to demonstrate what she perceived as jealousy and mental instability. Cousins and aunts expressed their intention to cut off all contact if I proceeded with what they saw as harassment and threats toward Isabella. The social isolation extended beyond immediate family to encompass our entire community network. Isabella had been systematically sharing her fabricated evidence with family friends, church members, and professional contacts, creating a comprehensive narrative about my declining mental health and inappropriate behavior. These efforts ensured that, even if I maintained some family relationships, my broader social support system would be poisoned against me. Cousin Michael's betrayal provided the final devastating blow to my sense of reality and trust. He approached me privately after the family confrontation to reveal that he had been reporting my activities and conversations to Isabella for months, serving as her intelligence source within what I had believed were my few remaining supportive family relationships. "I'm sorry, Cassie, but Isabella asked me to keep track of what you were doing and saying because she was worried about your mental state," he explained with apparent genuine regret. "She showed me evidence of your behavior that convinced me you needed professional help, and I thought providing information would help her get you the support you needed." His confession revealed the extent of Isabella's surveillance network within our family structure. She had been systematically recruiting family members to monitor and report on my behavior, creating comprehensive intelligence gathering that allowed her to anticipate my actions and prepare countermeasures for any resistance I might attempt to organize. The evening concluded with my complete isolation from every family relationship I had maintained. No one expressed curiosity about my side of the story or questioned the evidence Isabella had presented. No one suggested alternative explanations for the behaviors they had witnessed or the evidence they had been shown. The family's eagerness to believe the worst about me revealed how thoroughly Isabella had prepared the ground for this moment of total rejection. As family members departed that night, each made a point of expressing their disappointment in my behavior and their support for Isabella's position. The message was clear and unanimous. I was no longer welcome as a family member unless I submitted completely to Isabella's version of reality and publicly acknowledged my supposed mental illness and inappropriate behavior. The ultimatum gave me 1 week to decide whether to attend the wedding as a repentant and supportive sister or face permanent exile from the only social and financial support system I had ever known. Isabella's final words to me that night made clear that she expected complete capitulation and public humiliation as the price of any continued family membership. 1 week before the wedding, Isabella orchestrated what she intended to be her final victory over my spirit and resistance. Her plan was diabolical in its psychological precision, designed to shatter any remaining hope I might harbor about maintaining dignity or finding support within our family structure. She arranged what appeared to be an accidental encounter that would publicly demonstrate my complete powerlessness and social isolation, while providing additional evidence for her narrative about my mental instability. The setup began with a phone call from David, the first direct communication we had shared since the engagement announcement months earlier. His voice carried what seemed like genuine warmth and concern as he suggested meeting for coffee to discuss the upcoming wedding and my relationship with Isabella. He claimed to want to understand my perspective and possibly mediate some resolution that would allow me to participate in their celebration without the tension that had been building throughout the planning process. Against my better judgment, hope flickered in my chest at the possibility that someone might finally listen to my side of the story. David suggested meeting at Cornerstone Cafe, the small coffee shop near my former workplace where we had occasionally shared lunch breaks during our time as colleagues. The location seemed deliberately chosen to evoke positive memories and create an atmosphere conducive to honest conversation and potential reconciliation. I arrived early, nervous, but cautiously optimistic about the possibility of finally having my voice heard by someone who mattered in this devastating situation. David appeared punctually, looking handsome and professionally polished as always, carrying himself with the confidence that had originally attracted me to him. His initial demeanor seemed genuinely friendly and concerned, making me believe that perhaps Isabella's manipulation hadn't completely poisoned his perception of my character. The conversation began innocuously enough, with David asking about my work and expressing what appeared to be authentic interest in my well-being during what he acknowledged must be a difficult time. However, the tenor shifted dramatically when he began discussing my feelings for him and my relationship with Isabella. His tone gradually transformed from concern to condescending, then finally to cruelly dismissive as he revealed the true purpose of our meeting. "Cassie, I think it's important for you to understand that you never had a chance with me, even before Isabella and I began our relationship," he said with devastating casualness, as if discussing whether rather than destroying someone's emotional foundation. "Our professional interactions were pleasant, but I never considered you as potential romantic partner material. Isabella possesses qualities that you simply lack and could never develop, regardless of your efforts or aspirations." His monologue continued with systematic destruction of every hope and fantasy I had cherished about our potential connection. He explained that my attempts at flirtation had been obvious and somewhat amusing to him, providing entertainment during boring workdays rather than genuine romantic interest. My contributions to professional projects had been adequate but unremarkable, hardly the impressive displays of competence I had imagined them to be. "Isabella and I connect on intellectual, social, and emotional levels that you couldn't comprehend," he continued, his voice growing more confident as he watched my expression crumble. "We share similar educational backgrounds from prestigious universities, complementary career aspirations in finance and business development, and family connections that will benefit both our professional advancement. Most importantly, we understand the importance of maintaining appropriate social appearances and cultural standards." The cruelest revelation came when David disclosed the extent of Isabella's betrayal regarding my private thoughts and feelings. She had been sharing excerpts from our supposed sisterly conversations for years, providing him with detailed accounts of my romantic fantasies, professional insecurities, and family frustrations. These intimate revelations had become sources of entertainment for both of them, bonding material that strengthened their relationship while deepening my humiliation. "Isabella has been keeping me informed about your feelings and behavior since we first met," he admitted with obvious enjoyment of my shock and horror. "Your diary entries were particularly enlightening, showing just how deep your obsession had become and how disconnected your perceptions were from reality. We found your romantic fantasies endearing in their naivety, but ultimately concerning in their intensity and persistence." David revealed that Isabella had been photographing pages from my private journal and sharing them during their romantic dinners, turning my most vulnerable thoughts into entertainment for their relationship. They had discussed my entries in detail, analyzing my emotional state and making predictions about my likely reactions to various situations. My private pain had become their shared amusement, strengthening their bond while systematically destroying my sense of privacy and emotional safety. The conversation reached its lowest point when David began detailing the financial and social advantages that his relationship with Isabella provided. Her father's business connections had already resulted in lucrative opportunities for his career advancement, while her social status ensured invitations to exclusive events and networking opportunities that would never be available through association with someone of my lower standing. Your family's financial situation is obviously comfortable, but nothing compared to the Martinez family's wealth and influence, he explained with obvious satisfaction. Isabella's trust fund alone exceeds your family's total net worth, and her connections in the business community will provide opportunities for advancement that could never come through other relationships. Marrying her represents a strategic decision that will benefit my career for decades to come. As David continued his devastating monologue, I noticed Isabella approaching our table with perfect timing that revealed this encounter had been carefully planned rather than accidentally arranged. Her expression combined fake surprise with obvious satisfaction as she pretended to be shocked by finding us together in what she would portray as another inappropriate attempt on my part to interfere with their relationship. "Cassie, what are you doing here with David?" she asked with theatrical concern, her voice carrying across the cafe to ensure maximum audience for the scene she was orchestrating. I thought we had discussed the importance of respecting boundaries and giving David space during this stressful time before our wedding. The public nature of her performance was calculated to humiliate me in front of former colleagues and professional contacts who frequented the cafe. Several people I recognized from my previous job turned to watch the unfolding drama, their expressions revealing recognition and growing understanding of what they perceived as my desperate and inappropriate pursuit of Isabella's fiancé. Isabella's monologue continued with masterful manipulation of the situation, positioning herself as the concerned sister trying to help her mentally unstable sibling while protecting her relationship from inappropriate interference. She expressed heartbreak over my continued inability to respect their relationship and concern about what lengths I might go to in order to disrupt their upcoming wedding celebration. David asked me to meet him here so we could try to work things out, I protested, my voice sounding weak and defensive even to my own ears. The explanation sounded pathetic and unconvincing, exactly as Isabella had intended when she orchestrated the entire encounter. David nodded sympathetically while explaining that he had hoped a direct conversation might help me understand reality and move forward in healthier ways. The appearance of my parents provided the crescendo to Isabella's carefully orchestrated performance. They arrived with expressions of profound disappointment and barely controlled anger, clearly having been summoned to witness what they perceived as my latest inappropriate behavior. Their timing was too perfect to be coincidental, confirming that this entire encounter had been planned as a public demonstration of my supposed mental instability. Father's voice carried across the cafe as he expressed his mortification at finding his daughter harassing Isabella's fiancé in such a public setting. His words were chosen for maximum humiliation, ensuring that everyone within earshot understood the situation as he perceived it. Mother's tears and obvious emotional distress added another layer to the performance, portraying me as a source of family shame and heartbreak. "How could you put us through this embarrassment?" Father demanded, his voice shaking with what appeared to be genuine rage and disappointment. "Haven't you caused enough pain for Isabella during what should be the happiest time of her life? Do you have any idea how this behavior reflects on our family's reputation in this community?" The public confrontation concluded with my parents' final ultimatum, delivered in front of witnesses who would ensure that news of my supposed breakdown spread throughout our social and professional networks. I would attend the wedding as a supportive family member and publicly apologize for my inappropriate behavior, or face immediate and permanent expulsion from the family with complete financial and social consequences. Isabella's performance reached its peak as she tearfully forgave my latest transgression while expressing hope that I would finally accept professional help for what she portrayed as obvious mental health issues. Her generous spirit in the face of my supposed harassment made her appear saintly while casting me as an increasingly dangerous and unstable threat to everyone's happiness and safety. The cafe encounter ended with my complete humiliation in front of former colleagues and community members who would spread the story of my apparent mental breakdown throughout our social circles. Isabella had successfully portrayed me as obsessed, delusional, and potentially dangerous, while positioning herself as a patient and loving sister dealing with a family tragedy. That evening, as I sat alone in my apartment contemplating the wreckage of my relationships and reputation, I reached the breaking point that Isabella had been systematically engineering for months. Every bridge had been burned, every ally had been turned against me, and every escape route had been systematically blocked by her comprehensive campaign of manipulation and character assassination. The realization that struck me with crystal clarity was that my family had never actually loved me at all. Their eagerness to believe Isabella's lies and their complete lack of interest in my perspective revealed that they had been looking for reasons to reject me entirely. Isabella hadn't created their lack of love. She had simply given them permission to express it openly. Faced with the choice between complete capitulation to Isabella's narrative about my mental illness and inappropriate behavior, or using the nuclear evidence I possessed to destroy her carefully constructed lies, I finally understood that I had nothing left to lose. The family that demanded my submission had already rejected me completely. The only question remaining was whether I would allow their cruelty to continue unchallenged or finally fight back with everything I had discovered. The decision to refuse attending the wedding triggered an avalanche of family fury that confirmed everything I had suspected about their true feelings toward me. Within hours of my phone call to Mother declining the ultimatum, my social media accounts exploded with messages, posts, and comments from family members expressing their shock, disappointment, and anger at what they portrayed as my final descent into jealous madness. Uncle Thomas posted a lengthy Facebook message describing his heartbreak over my refusal to support Isabella during her most important life moment. His post garnered dozens of comments from extended family members and family friends, each adding their own expressions of disappointment and concern about my mental state. The post painted me as a tragic figure whose jealousy had consumed her ability to feel happiness for others, particularly her own sister. Grandmother Martinez's Instagram story featured a photo of Isabella in her wedding dress, with a caption expressing gratitude that some family members understood the importance of celebrating love and happiness, while others allowed negative emotions to poison their hearts. The post received hundreds of likes and supportive comments from her extensive social network, many of whom shared their own stories about dealing with jealous family members during important celebrations. Cousin Jennifer created a TikTok video discussing the importance of cutting toxic family members out of important celebrations, using my situation as an example without naming me directly. The video went viral within our extended family and social circles, with viewers easily identifying the situation and expressing their support for Isabella's decision to proceed with her wedding despite family drama. The digital campaign expanded beyond simple social media posts to include more targeted harassment designed to isolate me completely from any remaining support networks. Family members began contacting my workplace, expressing concern about my mental state and suggesting that stress might be affecting my professional performance. While they framed these calls as caring family members seeking help for a troubled relative, the effect was to plant seeds of doubt about my stability and competence among professional colleagues. Father's business associates received similar communications, with family members expressing worry that my emotional problems might affect his concentration and decision-making abilities. These conversations were designed to create professional pressure on Father to resolve the family situation quickly, preferably by forcing me into compliance with Isabella's demands or removing me from family considerations entirely. The financial pressure campaign intensified as promised, with immediate termination of all family financial support systems. My health insurance was canceled, car payments were stopped, and credit cards connected to family accounts were frozen without warning. The apartment lease complications created additional stress as father began proceedings to remove his name as guarantor, effectively forcing me to find alternative housing arrangements within 30 days. However, these attacks also provided the motivation I needed to proceed with my nuclear response plan. As I watched my family's enthusiastic participation in my destruction, any remaining guilt about exposing Isabella's crimes evaporated completely. They had chosen their side with enthusiasm, and now they would face the consequences of supporting a criminal and adulterer while destroying an innocent family member. The evidence organization process required meticulous attention to detail and strategic thinking about maximum impact timing. I had discovered enough material to destroy Isabella's reputation, marriage prospects, and freedom simultaneously, but the presentation needed to be coordinated for maximum psychological and legal effect. The goal was not just revenge, but complete exposure of the truth that would vindicate my treatment while protecting me from Isabella's anticipated countermeasures. The embezzlement evidence required careful compilation into a format that would be immediately understandable to both family members and law enforcement officials. I organized bank statements, false invoices, forged documents, and email correspondence into a comprehensive presentation that told the complete story of Isabella's 3-year criminal enterprise. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable, supported by documentation that would withstand legal scrutiny and criminal investigation. The adultery evidence was equally comprehensive, but required different presentation strategies for maximum emotional impact. I compiled photographs, hotel receipts, text message conversations, and recorded audio into a multimedia presentation that would leave no doubt about the scope and duration of Isabella's betrayal of David's trust. The material was explicit enough to be devastating, but professional enough to be credible rather than appearing vindictive. The most challenging aspect of evidence preparation involved creating legal protection for myself against Isabella's anticipated retaliation efforts. I consulted with employment attorneys about protecting my professional reputation, documented all family financial abuse for potential legal action, and prepared comprehensive records of Isabella's manipulation campaign for possible restraining order applications. The timing coordination required strategic thinking about maximum impact opportunities during the wedding celebration itself. I wanted the revelations to occur when the largest possible audience would be present, ensuring that Isabella's humiliation would be as public and comprehensive as the campaign she had waged against me. The wedding ceremony provided the perfect opportunity for maximum psychological impact. Technology preparation involved setting up delayed email systems that would automatically distribute evidence to predetermined recipient lists at specific times. I created multiple backup systems to ensure that Isabella couldn't prevent the information release by discovering my plans early or attempting to sabotage my communications equipment. The evidence would be delivered regardless of any countermeasures she might attempt. The recipient lists were carefully crafted for maximum impact across all areas of Isabella's life simultaneously. David's family would receive the adultery evidence. Father's business partners would get the embezzlement documentation, and extended family members would see both categories of evidence along with explanations of how Isabella had manipulated family dynamics for years. Law enforcement contacts were prepared to receive comprehensive evidence packages that would trigger immediate criminal investigations into Isabella's embezzlement activities. I had researched which agencies handled financial crimes and prepared evidence packages specifically formatted for their investigative requirements, ensuring that Isabella would face legal consequences rather than just social humiliation. Professional contacts at Martinez Holdings received evidence packages that would protect father's business from further theft while exposing Isabella's criminal activities to colleagues and business partners. These materials were prepared to demonstrate that Isabella had been acting independently rather than as part of any family conspiracy, protecting father's reputation while ensuring Isabella faced appropriate professional consequences. Social media preparation involved creating comprehensive evidence presentations that would be automatically posted across multiple platforms during the wedding ceremony. These posts would reach Isabella's extensive social network, ensuring that her carefully crafted reputation would be destroyed among peers, former classmates, and professional contacts simultaneously. The psychological preparation proved the most challenging aspect of planning my nuclear response. I had to accept that this action would permanently destroy any possibility of family reconciliation while potentially creating legal and social consequences for myself as well. However, watching my family's enthusiastic participation in Isabella's campaign against me made clear that reconciliation was never actually possible anyway. Final preparations included protecting my own assets and reputation against anticipated retaliation efforts. I moved personal belongings out of my apartment, established new banking relationships outside father's influence, and prepared alternative living arrangements that would be safe from family harassment during the anticipated aftermath of my evidence release. The night before the wedding, as I completed final preparations for the evidence release, I felt a strange sense of peace about the destruction I was about to unleash. Isabella had systematically destroyed every relationship and opportunity one valued, using family love as a weapon to enforce my compliance with her cruelty. Now she would learn that her victims could fight back with weapons she hadn't anticipated. The irony was perfect. Isabella's own criminal activities and moral failures would provide the ammunition for her destruction, while the family's enthusiastic support for her campaign against me would make their shock and humiliation even more devastating when the truth finally emerged. Justice would be served not through my manipulation or lies, but through simple exposure of Isabella's actual behavior to people who had been fooled by her carefully constructed facade. Saturday morning dawned bright and clear, providing perfect weather for what Isabella believed would be her moment of ultimate triumph. Social media feeds filled with photos from family members and friends preparing for the celebration, each post radiating excitement about witnessing Isabella and David's perfect union. The ceremony was scheduled for 4 o'clock at the prestigious Riverside Country Club, followed by an elaborate reception that would continue into the evening. Isabella's preparation photos dominated social media throughout the morning, showing her surrounded by bridesmaids in the bridal suite, looking radiant in her designer wedding gown. The images captured her at her most beautiful and confident, secure in her belief that she had successfully destroyed any threats to her happiness, while positioning herself for a future built on stolen money and hidden betrayals. My absence was noted and discussed extensively among wedding guests, with family members sharing their disappointment about my refusal to participate in celebrating Isabella's happiness. Several relatives posted about the importance of supporting family during major life events, clearly referencing my situation without naming me directly. The narrative was consistent across all platforms. I was the jealous sister who couldn't set aside personal feelings for family obligation. David's preparation photos showed him looking handsome and confident, surrounded by groomsmen including Marcus Thompson, his best friend and Isabella's secret lover. The irony of having Marcus stand beside him during marriage vows to a woman they were both betraying provided bitter satisfaction as I monitored social media while finalizing my evidence release timing. The ceremony began precisely on schedule, with guests gathering in the country club's elegant garden pavilion, decorated with thousands of dollars worth of flowers purchased with Isabella's embezzled funds. Live streaming allowed me to watch the proceedings remotely, timing my evidence release for maximum impact during the most important moments of Isabella's carefully orchestrated performance. Father walked Isabella down the aisle with obvious pride, completely unaware that his daughter had been stealing from his business for years while setting up his other daughter as a potential scapegoat. Mother dabbed at tears of joy in the front row, celebrating what she believed was her golden child's perfect match with a successful and devoted young man. David waited at the altar with apparent genuine emotion, having no idea that his bride had been systematically betraying him throughout their entire relationship. Marcus stood beside him as best man, maintaining perfect composure despite his intimate knowledge of the bride's true character and ongoing infidelity. The officiant began the ceremony with traditional opening remarks about love, commitment, and the sacred nature of marriage vows. Guests settled into their seats, phones tucked away out of respect for the solemn occasion, completely unprepared for the technological assault that was about to transform celebration into chaos. The first wave of my evidence release triggered exactly as Isabella began her walk down the aisle. The wedding planner's large display screen, intended to show romantic photos of the couple throughout their relationship, suddenly began displaying bank statements documenting Isabella's embezzlement activities. The images were clear and undeniable, showing unauthorized withdrawals and forged authorization documents bearing Isabella's signature. Gasps rippled through the audience as guests realized they were seeing evidence of serious financial crimes rather than romantic memories. Father's face went ashen as he recognized company account numbers and realized the magnitude of theft that had been occurring under his oversight. Business partners in attendance immediately understood the implications for Martinez Holdings' reputation and financial stability. The second wave hit as Isabella reached the altar, with every guest's phone simultaneously receiving multimedia messages containing photographs and text evidence of Isabella's affair with Marcus. The explicit nature of some images caused immediate shocked reactions from family members, while the dates and locations provided undeniable proof that the betrayal had been ongoing throughout the entire engagement period. David's reaction was devastating to witness, even through live stream video. His face crumpled with disbelief and heartbreak as he processed images of his bride and best friend in obviously intimate situations. Marcus went pale and began backing away from the altar, realizing that his secret had been exposed to his wife, children, and professional colleagues simultaneously. Isabella's initial confusion quickly transformed into panic and rage as she realized the scope of the evidence release. She began screaming denials and accusations, pointing toward empty seats where I should have been sitting while claiming that my jealousy and mental illness had driven me to create false evidence designed to destroy her happiness. "This is all fake," she shrieked, her carefully maintained composure cracking completely. "Cassie created these lies because she's obsessed with David and can't stand to see me happy. None of this is real. She's been planning this revenge for months because she's mentally unstable." However, the third wave of evidence release included audio recordings of Isabella's own voice confessing to both the embezzlement and the affair, along with detailed discussions of her plans to continue both criminal activities after the wedding. These recordings were impossible to dismiss as fabrications, featuring Isabella's distinctive voice and speech patterns discussing specific details that only she could have known. The audio evidence proved devastating because it revealed Isabella's true feelings about everyone she had been manipulating. Guests heard her express contempt for David's intelligence and describe him as a useful stepping stone rather than someone she actually loved. Family members heard her mock their devotion and discuss strategies for manipulating their emotions to maintain her favored position. Father's reaction was particularly dramatic as he realized that Isabella had been planning to continue stealing from his business after the wedding, with increased access to company accounts through her married status and enhanced trustworthiness. The recordings revealed detailed plans for expanding her embezzlement operation while using her new social position to avoid suspicion. David's confrontation with Isabella at the altar provided the emotional climax that guests would remember for years. His voice broke as he demanded explanations for the overwhelming evidence of her betrayal, while Isabella continued insisting that everything was fabricated by her jealous and mentally ill sister. "How could you do this to me?" David asked, his voice carrying across the silent pavilion. "How could you pretend to love me while stealing money and sleeping with my best friend? How could you plan to continue these lies throughout our entire marriage?" Isabella's response revealed the depth of her narcissism and manipulation skills. Rather than accepting responsibility or expressing remorse, she doubled down on blaming me for creating evidence through advanced technology designed to frame her for crimes she didn't commit. Her explanation became increasingly desperate and illogical as guests examined evidence on their phones that clearly contradicted her claims. Marcus's wife created additional chaos by attacking both Marcus and Isabella physically, requiring security intervention to prevent serious violence. Their children, who were serving as flower girl and ring bearer, began crying as they witnessed their parents' marriage exploding in front of hundreds of guests. The legal implications became clear when several guests began calling law enforcement to report the evidence of embezzlement they had received. Father's business attorney, who was attending as a family friend, immediately began documenting evidence for criminal referral while advising father about protecting company assets from further theft. Social media amplified the chaos as guests began posting photos and videos of the wedding's destruction across multiple platforms. Isabella's carefully crafted reputation crumbled in real time as evidence of her crimes spread beyond the immediate wedding audience to reach thousands of her professional and social contacts. The ceremony's complete collapse occurred when David finally removed Isabella's engagement ring and walked away from the altar without looking back. Marcus had already fled the scene, abandoning his family to deal with the consequences of his betrayal while facing his own professional and personal destruction. Isabella's final breakdown was complete and public, with her screaming accusations and threats while being restrained by security personnel. Her threats against me were recorded by multiple guests, providing evidence that would support restraining order applications while further damaging her credibility and legal position. The reception was canceled immediately, with catering staff and vendors learning about the situation through social media posts from guests who had witnessed the ceremony's destruction. The financial losses from canceled services added another layer of consequences to Isabella's criminal activities, affecting vendor relationships and professional reputation throughout the event planning community. Family members who had enthusiastically supported Isabella's campaign against me now faced the humiliating realization that they had been completely deceived by a criminal and adulterer. Their social media posts celebrating Isabella's happiness became evidence of their gullibility and poor judgment, requiring damage control efforts that would take years to overcome. The evening news coverage ensured that Isabella's humiliation extended far beyond our immediate social circles, with local media reporting on the dramatic wedding interruption and criminal evidence release. The story included enough details about the family dynamics and evidence to make clear that the bride's crimes had been exposed by a family member she had been systematically abusing. The aftermath of Isabella's wedding day exposure unfolded exactly as I had anticipated, with swift and devastating consequences that validated every decision I had made about releasing the evidence. Within 48 hours, Isabella was arrested on multiple felony charges related to embezzlement, fraud, and identity theft. The FBI's white-collar crime unit took over the investigation after discovering that her criminal enterprise crossed state lines through her shell company operations. The criminal charges were comprehensive and carried serious prison time if convicted. Federal prosecutors were particularly interested in Isabella's systematic forgery of my signature on authorization documents, treating this as evidence of sophisticated criminal planning rather than simple theft. The identity theft charges alone carried potential sentences that could result in decades of incarceration. David's family immediately filed civil lawsuits against Isabella for fraud and emotional distress, seeking damages for the elaborate deception that had convinced them to welcome her into their family. Their attorneys argued that Isabella's criminal activities and secret affair constituted intentional infliction of emotional distress that warranted substantial financial compensation. Marcus faced his own comprehensive destruction as his affair with Isabella became public knowledge throughout his professional and social circles. His wife filed for divorce immediately, seeking full custody of their children and maximum financial settlement. His employer, a prestigious law firm, began termination proceedings based on moral character issues that reflected poorly on their professional reputation. Father's business faced immediate crisis management challenges as news of Isabella's embezzlement spread throughout their industry. Several major clients canceled contracts, expressing concern about Martinez Holdings' financial oversight and internal security procedures. Father was forced to hire external auditors to assess the full scope of damage while implementing new financial controls to prevent future theft. However, the business investigation also revealed that father had been completely unaware of Isabella's criminal activities, protecting him from criminal liability while demonstrating that Isabella had been acting entirely independently. This finding was crucial for preserving what remained of Martinez Holdings' reputation and maintaining relationships with remaining clients. The family's reaction to the truth revealed the permanent fractures that my evidence release had created within our family structure. Some relatives, including Uncle Thomas and Cousin Jennifer, reached out with genuine apologies and expressions of horror at how completely they had been deceived by Isabella's manipulation campaign. Their messages acknowledged their participation in my mistreatment and expressed shame about their eagerness to believe Isabella's lies. Uncle Thomas's apology was particularly meaningful because of his professional background in psychology. His message included detailed analysis of Isabella's manipulation techniques and acknowledgement that her campaign against me showed clear signs of systematic emotional abuse that he should have recognized and addressed. His professional credentials gave weight to his assessment of the family dynamics and Isabella's psychological warfare tactics. Cousin Jennifer's apology included revelation about additional manipulation she had witnessed, but failed to report because of Isabella's influence over family dynamics. She shared details about Isabella's behind-the-scenes coaching of family members about how to treat me, providing evidence that the campaign against me had been even more systematic and coordinated than I had realized. However, other family members, including my parents, doubled down on their support for Isabella despite overwhelming evidence of her crimes and moral failures. Rather than acknowledging their role in enabling her criminal behavior while destroying their innocent daughter, they chose to maintain their narrative about my jealousy and mental instability. Mother's response was particularly devastating, suggesting that my evidence release was itself proof of mental illness and vindictive personality traits that justified their treatment of me. She argued that exposing family secrets, even criminal activities, demonstrated lack of loyalty and moral character that explained why I had never received the same level of family support as Isabella. Father focused on the business damage caused by my evidence release, arguing that I should have handled Isabella's crimes privately to protect the family's reputation and financial stability. His perspective suggested that covering up criminal activity was preferable to public exposure that might affect family wealth and social standing. The legal protection I had prepared proved essential as Isabella attempted to retaliate from jail through threats and harassment campaigns directed through her remaining supporters. However, her criminal charges limited her ability to mount effective countermeasures, while my documented evidence of her previous manipulation provided strong support for restraining order applications. The financial independence I achieved through father's forced restitution and new employment opportunities provided the foundation for rebuilding my life outside the toxic family system. Father's business insurance covered significant portions of Isabella's theft, while civil judgments ensured that I received compensation for the emotional and financial damage her campaign had caused. New employment came through professional contacts who admired my courage in exposing criminal activity despite personal cost. Several companies reached out after learning about my situation through media coverage, offering positions that provided both financial stability and opportunities for career advancement outside my family's influence. The healing process began with intensive therapy focused on recovering from years of systematic emotional abuse and family scapegoating. Working with professionals who specialized in narcissistic family dynamics helped me understand that Isabella's behavior represented genuine personality disorders rather than simple sibling rivalry, while my family's enabling patterns reflected dysfunction that preceded my birth. Therapy also addressed the complex emotions surrounding my decision to destroy Isabella's life through evidence release. While the criminal charges and social humiliation were consequences of her own actions rather than my manipulation, I still had to process the psychological impact of wielding such devastating power against family members. New relationships developed with people who valued authenticity and moral courage over family loyalty and social appearances. These friendships provided healthy relationship models that contrasted sharply with the manipulation and conditional love that had characterized my family experiences throughout childhood and young adulthood. The family members who genuinely apologized became part of a new, smaller support network based on mutual respect rather than obligatory blood relationships. Uncle Thomas, Cousin Jennifer, and several others maintained contact while respecting my need for boundaries around family involvement and emotional availability. Professional counseling helped me establish appropriate boundaries with family members who insisted on maintaining contact despite their continued support for Isabella. These boundaries protected my emotional healing while allowing minimal interaction when absolutely necessary for practical or legal purposes. The broader community response validated my decision to expose the truth despite personal costs. Many people expressed admiration for my courage in standing up to family pressure and criminal activity, while others shared their own experiences with similar family dynamics and manipulation campaigns. Media coverage of the situation sparked conversations about family scapegoating and emotional abuse within apparently successful families. My story became an example for other people experiencing similar treatment, demonstrating that fighting back was possible even when family systems seemed completely aligned against victims. The legal resolution of Isabella's criminal cases provided final vindication of my evidence and decision-making. Her plea agreements included restitution payments and acknowledgement of guilt that officially validated everything I had endured and exposed. The criminal convictions made clear that her campaign against me had been designed to cover serious criminal activity rather than addressing legitimate family concerns. 2 years after the wedding day reckoning, Isabella was serving a federal prison sentence while I had built a new life based on honesty, healthy relationships, and professional success. The family members who had enthusiastically supported her destruction of me now faced the ongoing consequences of their poor judgment and moral failures. The final wisdom I gained through this experience was understanding that family love must be based on genuine care and respect rather than obligation and manipulation. Sometimes protecting yourself requires burning bridges with people who never actually loved you anyway. The family I lost was built on lies and conditional acceptance, while the new relationships I developed were founded on mutual respect and authentic connection. Building my chosen family with people who actually valued and respected me provided the love and support that had been missing throughout my childhood and young adulthood. These relationships taught me what healthy family dynamics actually looked like, while demonstrating that blood relationships without genuine care and respect were worthless compared to chosen connections based on shared values and mutual support. I hope this story resonates with anyone who's ever felt like the family scapegoat or dealt with a golden child sibling who seemed to get away with everything. Have you experienced similar family dynamics where one person could do no wrong while another was constantly blamed for everything? Share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. If this story opened your eyes to family manipulation tactics, please hit that like button and subscribe for more real-life stories about standing up to toxic family systems. Don't forget to share this with anyone who might need to hear that they're not alone in dealing with these painful family situations. Thank you for listening to my story, and remember that sometimes the family that truly loves you is the one you choose for yourself. You deserve relationships built on genuine care and respect, not manipulation and conditional acceptance.